I mean, I had kind of like key points. Is basically my uprising about me, like a personal, but also on for the record, this is all. This is just me expressing myself, and like this is my own opinion. I'm not trying to bad mouth anybody. This is just for my own self, and like it's very therapeutic. Something I feel like maybe a lot of fighters don't talk about. There are certain occasions that you see fighters talk about it, but unfortunately, they're kind of painted in a very negative way. Like like obviously, top of my head, Diego Sanchez, right?
Right.
Diego was an Ultimate Fighter. He won the Ultimate Fighter, and he was a long. He was a veteran in UFC, and like, and then you see him going through some crazy shit, and then I don't know what happened to him. He became like he went on the off rails, and like everybody about mouthing him, and like Tony Ferguson he's still in the UFC after 6 losses. I only had 2 losses, which are controversial, and I got released. But I mean, I love the UFC. That's the crazy part. Like that was like I never thought I would be in the UFC. I just one thing led to another. Martial arts was always been a passion of mine. I got introduced to martial arts at a very young age. Very young. My parents came from Lebanon. They left the war. Right now, there's still war going on. They went to Canada, and I was born in Canada, and then I was raised in Montreal, Quebec. And my first discipline was Taekwondo, and then I got introduced to karate, and then I got introduced to kickboxing, and then I got introduced to TriStar Gym. That was like my start of my journey into mixed martial arts. I'm a very good friend of Faraz Zahabi. We kept friendship. He's a good guy. He understands fighting. There are some people who really care about the fighters who don't care about like your money. And Faraz Zahabi was one of them. I feel like I need to say this because I know in the past I was very emotional. Like that's another thing. Like look at Mike Tyson. Look at the Mike Tysons. Look at being a fighter. We're not supposed to be politically right all the time. We're very emotional. We're trained to hurt. Like it's always like, it's very egoistical sport. It's very selfish. It's self-centered. You got to think of yourself. You have to beat up your training partners. You need to be the best. You have to go out there, perform. So that being said, that's not who I am. Like, I became a monster. I became like this animal, and I became self-destructive. And the people around me, I did not know how to communicate. I had a hard time expressing myself, and when I would speak, it would come off very negative, and I got misunderstood. Let's. I don't want to. I want to kind of talk about my uprising. You know what I mean? Because it really plays a factor in my career and my financials. Because my parents don't make any money. So basically, my mom, my father don't make any money. They have 4 kids. They raised us at their best ability. I became a UFC fighter, and right away, I'm making some money. I'm not rich. I'm not even like taking care of myself. Like, and as a man, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have my own family. So for me, it was like to be a good son, I want to give back to my mother. Like that's for me is giving back, right? Some people give back to their community, which is cool, but I'm giving back to my family. I don't know my community. I know my family, right? My mom, my father raised me. They gave me food, shelter. You know what I mean? So I'm going to give back to my family, right? So I'm giving back money to my family, and my older brother, I'm helping him out because he took care of me when I was young, and we had businesses. And that was another crazy, like people don't know, like I got fucked over by my own brother in a sense where I don't think he fucked me over. It's just bad business, like if you look at history with Fear the Fighter. Fear the Fighter was one of the biggest sponsors in the UFC, and my brother was. I was the inspiration. I was the inspiration behind it, but I never dealt. I was never in the business like day-to-day businesses, transactions. When it came to money, I was never a part of all that. My older brother took care of all that, but everything fell on my name, which I was surprised. So like, there's a lot of bad things kind of happened, you know what I mean? And that was because I always felt in debt to my family, you know. So you look at the UFC payouts, you know, I got into UFC, it was $6,000 to show, $6,000 to win, right? So I mean, you can't just get into the UFC, right? You have to be dedicated. I dedicated my whole life. I have an amateur record. I didn't just wake up one day and I'm like, I want to be a fighter. You know what I mean? This has kind of been going on for a long time. You know what I mean? And then at 7-0 at that time, I fought in local promotions. My first payout was King of the Cage. They only offered me $300. I mean, think about it. What's $300? I mean, a guy who works at McDonald's makes more money, but I have to make a sacrifice. I got to make a choice. And it is a choice, you know what I mean? So I don't want to act like a victim because I'm very passionate. So what I tell people, I always tell the younger generation, like I see these young kids like, oh, I want to be in the UFC, who are 12 years old, 13, 14. And I always say to them is like, are you ready to die? And people don't understand what I mean by are you ready to die? I'm not saying literally are you ready to die. Obviously nobody wants to die, right? We don't want to die. We want to enjoy life. But the reason why I say that is because you need to love it as much as you're ready to die for it. Because money, in the beginning, you're not gonna make no money. In the beginning, most people are gonna think you're crazy. Like when I made that decision to focus 100%, all my chips, all my eggs in one basket, to excel in martial arts and to go into the highest level, to try to potentially make six figures. I made that decision. At that time, I was 21. I was in college. I was trying to go into business. I knew that at a young age, I wouldn't be able to work at a 9-to-5 job. You know what I mean? That was obviously a given. I was dating a girl for 6 years. She was cheating on me behind my back with another dude, and I loved this girl, and she never supported me being a fighter. So I was always training in the gym, sacrifice. Because the thing is, you gotta make a sacrifice. Like you can't, have a fucking relationship and go out with your buddies. I'm always in the gym. Like that's the reality is like I'm not talented. I had to work hard. So do I go out with my friends? Do I go out to my girlfriend's house and chill with her, or do I spend those 2-3 hours in the gym to improve my skills? So I would go and do extra work. And I would always do the normal training schedule, but then I would always do the extra work because that was my confidence boost. Was when what am I doing when everyone else is resting? And I'm talking about as an amateur. So I would always train extra hard. I would train on the weekends. I would train on Friday nights, Saturday nights, and I would go compete. So that was kind of my life for 4 or 5 years. That was my life before I became in the UFC. That was before I got into UFC. 4 or 5 years, it was fucking eat, sleep, and train. That's all I was doing. I had no social life. Any girl that came into my life, they obviously, they never came to they were there, but then it was like, oh, I don't want to deal with all that blood, sweat, and tears. People, you know what I mean? It was hard for them to see all that grinding, right? Because everybody wants to just, be there when it's convenient for them.
Right.
So the thing is, the payout when it comes to the way the payouts work in the UFC, it's like you need to really like sell. You need to be a household name. The UFC, they have to like you because I don't care what anyone says. Like now we live in a world of like, like Logan Paul, like Jake Paul, the Paul brothers, Floyd Mayweather. If you don't have that, if you don't have that ability to sell tickets or to be to bring attention towards you, I mean, it's hard, right? I mean, I'm an introvert. I'm a martial artist. I grew up with like stay quiet at my parents' house. I don't talk back to my mother or my father. I would get a beating. Like I do not come from a background of trash talk, of flamboyant. I come from a very low key, under the radar, traditional Catholic family. You shut your fucking mouth. You respect your elders, and you say thank you and you speak when it's time for you to speak. Now we live in a day and age where obviously because of social media, now everybody has a voice. Everybody is fucking making videos. Now kids are becoming popular through TikTok and Instagram. And I'm nothing against that shit. I'm just saying that I'm just trying to explain to the normal viewer that doesn't know who I am, like where my uprising, because I do believe my culture and my way of my uprising, it did kind of transparent into my fighting career because I wasn't really selling tickets. Well, in my eyes, I was like, I'm just gonna knock people out and be an entertainer fighter. And I believe in my heart, I did the best in my abilities to be an entertainer. If you look at my UFC record, if you look at, forget about wins or losses, because a lot of decisions, a lot of my losses, it could have been, you know what I mean? It was, if you look at my decision, it's very controversial. You know, there's many times I felt that I won the fight and I did not. And judges, that's a whole different topic. Like, how can you judge a fight through a 10-9 system when you only have 3 rounds?
Right.
Doesn't make any sense, because they actually took that philosophy from the boxing realm. Boxing has a 10-9 point system. Boxing has 6 rounds, 12 rounds.
Yep.
So the fighter in the first couple of rounds will take it. So here's the thing. So people are like, John, you're a slow starter, but it's not about I'm a slow starter. I'm just a fucking intelligent fighter. What does that mean? The first round, I'm feeling the guy out. I'm not gonna pull the trigger unless it happens. I mean, sometimes it does happen in the first round. Within the first couple of minutes, the guy, I get all the data plan. I get all the data. I feel him out, and I'm ready to execute. Some guys, it takes me around maybe 2 rounds to get comfortable in the ring, and then once I understand what they're gonna do, I'll execute. So it's hard in a 3. It's very hard to, you know, to become aggressive. I'm not saying it's impossible, because a lot of fighters do it. First round, they come out hard, but that's not me. I come from a very traditional background. I just for me, it was more important to be like, hey, people in the public are like, UFC fighter, you're rich, you're making a lot of money. Fuck, you're not making any money. You know, here's the thing: you gotta go to a gym. I mean, you can't become a professional fighter off watching YouTube channels. Let's get real. Like, I don't give a fuck how much instructional videos there are out there, and I wish I was making money through YouTube. There's so much like videos about how to throw a jab, how to work out, and how to do this and yada yada yada. But that's not in the real world. That doesn't work. So you got to go to a gym. You got to surround yourself with professionals. You got to get good experience coaching, good experience athletes. You got to throw yourself in the crossfire. You got to fucking go in the mud. You got to fucking grind it out. And all this costs money, right? So so people are like, oh, I'm in the UFC now. I made it. I mean, not really. That causes more stress. Why? Because now people are going to label you. Oh, you're a UFC fighter. I'm gonna just want to make $1 off your back, and that's the dark secret. Everybody wants to make money. I get it, but I was like, but hold on a second. Look at boxing. Look at Al Heyman. Why is some boxer, they're like, the promoter is like, hey, listen, you sign under me, we'll guarantee you this amount of money. We'll take care of. You don't have to stress about training, coaching. We'll take care of you, right? Obviously, there's more money in boxing, but my thing is like this. It's like coaches and managers, all they do is take from the fighter, which is normal. I get that. I'm not, it makes a lot of sense. Like, I'm the coach, I'm going to train you, I'm going to dedicate my time to you, but I want to make money, which is cool. But at least bring something to the table, because here's the thing. If you're a trainer, okay, in a normal setting of a mixed martial art gym, you're going into a gym where there's many other fighters. There's so many fighters. So this trainer is giving maybe 2% to you, 2% to this guy, 2% to this guy. He's kind of like spreading himself thin. He wants Coaching wants, you go to a gym, they want 10% from all the fighters. And then managers, sport agents, sport management, they will sign you, and then we want 10%. Okay, cool. But here's the thing, like for me, it's like I'm a UFC fighter already. Like you did not make me, you did not sacrifice. I mean, it's like same thing in a relationship, right? Um, it's like same thing in a relationship. Like at least like I believe that we have to have a better structure for the fighters, because at the end of the day, a fighter, he doesn't have 20 sources of income. If I had 20 sources of income, then it's a different story. That's great. But it's very hard. Like that's like, it's easy to talk about success and all these guys, but sometimes like, hey man, things don't work out the way we attend them. Like I tried very hard to do business outside of fighting where I wasn't dependent on just my income from my fighting. I wanted to like, hey, I took whatever money I made, I would pump it into a business. I don't want to like, get distracted by a web of fucking things, because this can be very in depth, right? Because obviously everybody's individual, everyone has their own experiences. I'm just talking about my own experience, like from my parents to my family, my uprising, and becoming a UFC fighter, and how much the money we make. Like, so the UFC, so here's the thing, right? I always try to put myself in other people's shoes, right? So as a promoter, as a company as a whole, you got all these talented fighters, right? You got all these talented fighters, and you guys they want to make money, you know what I mean? But so for me, it's like, but hold on a second. Why don't you guys give fighters in the beginning? I went to a summit a long time ago where they tell the fighters, hey, listen, we'll pay for you guys to come out here. There was like 400 fighters at that time in the UFC. We'll pay you guys to come out here, and we'll let you guys go to different classes so people can teach you about how to brand yourself, how to be smart with your money, how to try to reinvest it. But that's the crazy part, because that's very hypocritical, because now let's fast forward to 2023. Now there's clauses where I don't know if it's a fact or just rumors, because internet is such a crazy. Internet has become fucking scary. Like there's so much things out there, So I don't know if it's a fact, but I saw on the net there was a clause that was saying that if you're in the UFC and you have a brand that is outside of the UFC, that they want to cut from it.
I've heard that as well. Definitely heard that as well.
So that's like, well, hold on a second. You're the UFC, man. You're supposed to help the fighters how to brand themselves, how to be smart entrepreneurs. Because like Dana White says, UFC's an athlete's career is very small. You have a small window of opportunity to make lump sums of money if you succeed. Sometimes you don't succeed. Like sometimes you're in the UFC for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. I don't know. I do not know the statistics about an average UFC fighter's longevity. I mean, for me personally, every fight was like my last fight. Like straight up. I lived for 13 years. I lived with a lot of anxiety. I lived with a lot of stress. And I never spoke about this to no one, because here's the thing. No one teaches you how to handle success. It's like, hey, I'm a UFC fighter. I got signed. I got people who want to call you. People want to be your friends. People are jumping on the wagon, and you're getting all this attention. People are throwing free shit at you. People want to sponsor you. People want to be associated with you, but then you lose a couple of fights. Now you feel like a fucking loser. Now you feel like a scumbag. Now you feel like a failure. Where's everybody? No one's there. I mean, I'm a human. If you're my friend and I come to you and be like, I want to kill myself. If I'm in the hospital bed, I'm crying. I just lost a fight. I got to do surgery, and I'm telling you, I hate myself. Even if I say, fuck you, I hate you too. Obviously, a good friend would be like, this poor guy is going through shit, I'm like, I won't take it personal. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like, people, it's a crazy roller coaster ride. It's like the highest highs and lowest lows. And now you're in the UFC. People think you're making all kinds of money. So I'm like, hey, I only put that to the public. It's not because I'm trying to disrespect the UFC or I'm trying to, I'm trying to be like, whatever is, that's not what's going on. That's not how much money the fighters make. Like, I want people to know, like, hey, this is how much we're getting paid. This is how much this is how much I gotta pay from my own pockets. I gotta spend money here, spend money there. I gotta hire a gym, and gyms they don't give a fuck. Like, gyms want to take 10%. Managers want to take 10%. I'm not talking about all managers and all gyms. Some gyms, like I said, Faraz Zahabi was a great friend of mine. Like, he understands the struggles of being a fighter. It's MMA is a shitty business. Like, people don't understand. Like, it's still like comparing it to let's compare it to a fucking basketball player or a baseball player.
Yeah.
A guy who's sitting in the bench is a bench warmer. Not even doing anything. He's guaranteed money. Like, for me, it's like I'm a small fighter. Like, I'm not a big name. I'm not a well name. You know what I mean? I've been in UFC for 13 years. It's like, why do you keep me on the prelims? I fought some good fights. I fought Donald Cerrone 2 weeks notice. I went 2 rounds with the guy. He fractured my jaw. I wasn't even ready for the fight. I mean, the thing is like, yeah, it's a risk, right? But I mean, I feel like the promoter and the fighter should work together. Like, this came from George St. Pierre's mouth. This came from George St. Pierre's mouth. I'm gonna repeat myself. Not from my mouth, from George's mouth. And I come from TriStar, and I worked and I trained with George St. Pierre. Okay, he says, if the promotion likes you, they're gonna build you up. If they don't like you, they're gonna throw you to the wolves. I mean, you can't get more. It's just the way it is. Like, hey, we can't make money from you. We're just gonna fuck you. And that can go. You know what I mean? That's the corporate world. So, and it's like, that's just the dark side of. That's like the dark side of MMA. And I get it. Like, I'm not trying to. Like I said, I'm not acting like a victim. But what really pissed me off, what really triggered me was my last fight, because the UFC, Sean Shelby, the matchmaker, he says it was my last fight on the contract, and I tried so hard for the first time ever, I said, fuck managers, fuck everybody. I'm gonna take responsibility for my own life. I'm not gonna depend on my brother. I'm not gonna depend on my manager or my coach to watch my back, because they're gonna only watch their backs. So I'm like, fuck these guys. I'm gonna call, and I was really scared because I never speak to the UFC directly. Like, I'm scared. Like, I'm sending Dana White text message like, hey Dana, I really appreciate you. I've been in the UFC for 13 years. You know, I always give you guys exciting fights. Everyone knows me, striker. I never took it to the ground. You know, I always try to keep it exciting. I always kept it striking because they're big boxing fans. You know, if you can just try to help me out, give me a better contract. You know, I'm 38 years old. I'm not getting any younger. And like, you know, Dana White never responded to me. So I was a little bit confused, because I hear all these stories about Dana White, like, helping some guys out, like giving them better contracts. I'm like, I don't understand. I've been in UFC for 13 years. Like, you know, it's hard to, you know, that's why I started doing personal growth, because you know, all these like things are happening to someone, like all these bad things are happening to someone, and it's like, it's hard to not take it personal, because you're like, but why good things are not happening to me? Why I feel like I'm always struggling? Why like you start questioning yourself, you start doubting yourself, you start like thinking like maybe something's wrong with me. So instead of me turning to drugs and being toxic, which I'm not perfect, like I'm so fragile. I have so much. I'm so sensitive where I would just hook up with any random girl, because it would give me some type of validation. Like that's how, like, it was so crazy. Like, to me, once I broke up with my girlfriend who was with me for 10 years, once my brother, once she didn't want to talk to me no more, and once, like, I felt abandoned by my own girlfriend that I was engaged to for 10 years. Once I felt hurt from my own brother, when I felt hurt from my own blood that I gave them everything, I just became like I just became a mess. I just was like, I couldn't trust myself. I was very destructive. I was just fucking hooking up with random girls. I would go on dating apps and I'd be like fucking, it was such a mess. And I didn't know how to, like, talk about these things because I was always judging myself as being a bad person. and everybody wanted to be my friend only because I'm a UFC fighter. Because let's get real, if I was a janitor, girls were not gonna fucking have sex with me, but because girls know I'm a UFC fighter, they're gonna hook up with me. I mean, let's be real. Like, I'm not, you know what I mean? Let's call it spades. Let's call it spades a spades. Like, if I was a fucking janitor, I don't think girls would give me a day of time. You know what I mean? So I'm using this as to my leverage. Yeah, I'm a UFC fighter, mixed martial artist, blah blah blah. Let's, oh, you're a fighter. That's cool. It's like, shut the fuck up. So. Anyway, so I don't want to get distracted. So now Dana White is not responding to me. And, like, I have my last fight, my last contract. I tell Sean Shelby, go, listen, I'm very stressed out. Like, at least give me something, throw a bone at me. Like, I've been fighting for the veteran. I've been fighting for the UFC for 13 years. I fought Donald Cerrone 2 weeks notice. I wasn't even training. And at that time, people don't know because there's so many fights happening. People probably forgot. Donald Cerrone was ranked number 2 in the lightweight division. Donald Cerrone is not a, let's get this on the record. I don't care if he's listening or not. I don't like Donald Cerrone, number one. I don't like him. I just don't like his personality, but I respect him because obviously he's a good fighter. Donald Cerrone is not a lightweight. He's not a lightweight. He's a big 150 fighter. He's like, this guy would walk out 190 pounds, cut 250. Like, this guy's a big lightweight, but he would cut weight. He was ranked number 2 at that time, and he was getting ready to fight Khabib. Khabib gets injured, and I don't even know how my name got into the mix. I just finished the fight at the Bell Center in Montreal. I won that fight, and I'm just chilling at home eating my ice cream. And then I don't know how, they like, hey, you want to fight Donald Cerrone? I'm like, I didn't want to fight him because, number one, I'm not really mentally prepared. Because physically, you can train every day. People don't realize fighting is mental. If you're mentally not ready for the combat, what does that sound?
Do you hear something?
I hear like a weird sound.
I don't hear anything right now. I mean, is it good now?
I don't know. It was like a weird sound. You hear me?
I can hear fine. You're good now.
Okay, just so I fight Donald Cerrone. I get pressured from my own team. I mean, here's the thing. I can't be a pussy. Like, you can't be a pussy and be like, oh, I don't want to fight Donald Cerrone because I was scared. I'm fucking scared. I'm not scared I'm not scared of him. I'm just scared. I was like not prepared. Like, I'm like relatively still new in mixed martial arts. I mean, if you really think about it, I started mixed martial arts at 23 years old. Yes, I have a taekwondo and a karate background, but I don't care what anyone says. That shit is nothing compared to mixed martial arts. That's like saying I played softball and now you're in the Major League Baseball. It's like oranges and apples. So now I'm in the big leagues. I'm fighting like killers. Donald Cerrone he's been fighting for a long time, professional. WEC, a lot more fights than I have ever been in my whole life. I'm like, I don't remember 2016. I had maybe like 13 fights, maybe MMA. and this guy had like over a lot of fights. So I had to fight him. I fought him, and yeah, I mean Dana White was actually my best time actually because they felt bad for me and they actually sent me some money, which was cool. I don't want to talk bad about the UFC. I'm just trying to I'm like, hey, like fighters, we need to have some type of structure, better payout structure. I'm just trying to like, if it works, it doesn't work. If it don't work, it is what it is. But I just want to cause awareness for the younger fighters or the fighters who are scared to speak up. Because the thing is, I was hoping my last fight, I was supposed to win that fight. I mean, if you look at that fight, I don't know what the fuck. I mean, I watched the fight over and over again. Like, what are you judging? Are you judging like that's another thing? It's like self-defense, head movement, slips, like octagon control. Like fighting is about offense and defense. It's not just about offense. That's what makes we're professional fighters. It's about it takes a skill to not get hit. And a lot of times I would make him miss. I would move a lot. I countered his wrestling takedowns. I would give him I would strike him and he would kick me in the leg. I took some low kicks. He gave me a couple of shots, but I was always putting pressure on him. The majority of the fight, I was in control. I knocked him down. I caused more damage. It's not the first time where I got robbed, where I felt that I got robbed. It's not the first time in my career. But what really bothered me was Sean Shelby was like, "Hey, don't worry, win or lose, if you perform well, we'll re-sign you." But deep down inside, they weren't ever gonna resign me. So they kind of like tricked me to take the fight. So I'm like, okay, I'll accept the fight in Australia. So I'm like desperate. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to Australia now and I gotta find a gym. I usually train myself because let's just get real. It's fucking expensive. I gotta conserve my money. I can't just be spending it left and right. And gyms, they want gyms and trainers, they take so much money from the fighters. Like it's ridiculous. Like it doesn't make any sense. So I go to Fight Ready, and they ended up like charging me 10%. Where in my whole career, I never got charged 10%. It was like across the board. Usually gyms take a 5% commission. But here's the thing. It's like, okay, well, I'm a UFC veteran. Like, I'm coming to the gym. I'm only there for like 8 weeks, 10 weeks, and you want 10%. I just didn't feel that fair because if you train me as an amateur and you like build myself up, not even like TriStar, like Faraz Zahabi, TriStar would never even charge me that much. And I come from, and they built me up. Like TriStar built me up. You know what I mean? If any gym should take credit for me, it will be TriStar, because TriStar was my first home in MMA, and then I just wanted to get the fuck out of Montreal. I just wasn't happy back at home with the French and the taxes, and that's another thing. Like I can get into a whole subject about taxes. Like you're making more money, you're happy, but you're like, holy fuck, I'm getting taxed now a lot more.
Yep.
You're like, now you're like, hold on a second, it doesn't make any sense. Like how are you ever gonna get ahead of the rat race when you're like, well, how does this make sense? For me, it was like, so let me get this right. I make $100,000. I make $100,000 annually, and I gotta give the government half of my money.
Yep.
What the fuck? So then I'm scratching my head. I'm like, how am I ever gonna retire? So now I'm in like high alert. So I'm like, hold on a second, I can't. So I gotta give the government 50% of my money, almost. I gotta pay my manager. I have to obviously be a good son and give my family money. And then I have to like try to invest in businesses where hope to God they will succeed. How many businesses that fail?
Hundreds, thousands, millions.
Exactly. I invested in restaurants, nightclubs. I invested in I did a lot of investments, and it just never went the way it went because I had to trust my money with other people. For the first time in 13 years, I have to trust myself. So I'm investing in myself now. I'm just taking, and I'm just doing everything myself now. I'm doing my own marketing. I'm doing my own branding. I'm doing my own like website coaching, merch. Like I'm just YouTube channel, and it sucks because I'm competing with like it sucks because I'm making like nothing compared to other people. So now I'm like re-scrambling. I just got released by the UFC. I felt like I won the fight, and then I got taxed. And yes, they say that I'm supposed to get back the money, but I'm still waiting. So I mean, I'm still waiting for that money. But even though, regardless, I don't want this to make this about money because I want people to realize something. Okay, it's not just about the money because money comes and goes. Money for me is just comfort. What does that mean? Money is financial freedom. It's what do I do every day? Like people don't know me. I drive a fucking normal car. I just want a house. I want food. I want to have like the essentials. Like I don't take expensive trips. I don't have 20 cars. I don't live the luxurious lifestyle. I don't have 20 girlfriends where I gotta fucking fund them all. Like fuck that shit. Like I don't care about that. I can have $1 million in the bank account and I would still say the same thing. It's character. For me, it's character. What does that mean? I know I'm not perfect. I know I made a lot of mistakes. But you know what? I have to live with my mistakes. Like it's all about character because when I die, I always try to be honest to myself. And because for me that's more important than anything else. If you look at my social media, people are like, John, you're full of yourself. But I'm like, hold on a second. I'm full of myself. How am I? If you look at my social media, all I try to do is take my life as a whole, as being a martial artist, because that's all I know is I don't have anything else to give to the world. So for me, it's like if you look at my social media, I'm not talking about myself. I'm not saying, hey, look at me, like I'm victorious. I'm saying, hey, look at all my hardship, my struggles. I'm trying to inspire and motivate the people, the other people. If you look at my social media, I'm not like flexing. Oh, I'm a UFC fighter. Look at me. No, I'm saying, hey, yes, I'm a UFC fighter, but I struggle. I still struggle. I wake up every day. I have to work hard. I gotta motivate myself. I don't have, I'm trying to say, like, I'm just trying to be like, hey, this is who I am. Look at Conor McGregor. I'll give you an example. Okay? The reason why let's look at Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor, right, became, was living in his parents' basement or whatever, and his girlfriend was taking care of him. And now, like, he made a lot of money and he's very successful. But look at all the trouble he got himself into. I never beat up an old man. I never took drugs. I stayed away. When I became a UFC fighter, I stopped going to clubs. I stopped drinking alcohol. I stopped taking drugs. I became more disciplined because I was so scared. I was so scared to get that taken away from me. Right? Where a lot of fighters, what happens to them, right? They get some money in the bank, they get some attention. Now people are just like coming to you. And what happens? Oh, let's come out with me, let's go to the club. You know what I mean? It doesn't take much to lose track. It does not, you know what I mean, it doesn't take much to let the lifestyle get the best out of you. Like your ego is gonna come inflated, right? So I kind of like try to stay very disciplined. I try to stay very conservative, and I feel that was a big reason of my 13 years. I don't know the statistics, but how many fighters lasted 13 years in the UFC?
Not many. Let's be honest. It's not a lot. You really have to have a very long career and a positive career. I mean, you've seen a lot of these fighters and how they come and go. You know what I mean? And that's like the MO of the UFC, right? They'll get in some new fighters, see how they do, see if they're marketable. And if they do well, okay, they'll keep them on for another contract or two or however long. But then that's why the Contender Series is what it is. It's why it's been going on for as long as it is. Because then once those guys are gone and they're through, we'll get some more. 12K to win, 12K to show, and just keep recycling. So that's why you don't see many fighters like you having long careers unless they're like at the top of the top. You know what I mean? You won't see any like middling Contender Series fighters having 10 plus years unless they're a contender, an actual contender. You're not going to see these Contender Series fighters having 10 plus years in UFC if they're not good, really good. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So my thing is like, so my thing is like this. I'm the promoter. I have money coming in from different. UFC has merch. UFC has ticket sales. They have in the stadium, they're selling beers. There's alcohol. You got VIP. You got like sponsors. UFC has big ass sponsors. UFC has like, just top of my head, like Harley Davidson. All these different types of sponsors. We're not making money out of that. Like, I mean, so when that whole deal came with Reebok and Venom, we make a small little fraction of that money. And then we get taxed on top of that money. And then we have to pay out on top of that money. So what is the fighter left with? So here I am struggling, like scratching my head. I'm like, I don't like, it was always stressful for me because it was like, it's a never ending, it's a vicious circle. So my whole fighting career, I'm trying to find ways to like, I want to get out of this vicious circle because number one, I don't want to talk negative. I'm not trying to talk bad about the UFC or talk back, but it's like, hey, they're like, oh, you're winning a fight. Well, we'll $6,000. We'll bump you by $2,000. Oh, now I'm getting $8,000. Okay, you win your next fight. Well, okay, we'll bump you by another $2,000. Okay, now so my first fight contract was 6-6, 8-8, 10-10, 12-12. Now you're lucky if you're winning all those fights. You're lucky if you're fighting 3 times a year. If you're fighting 3 times a year, that's a good year for the fighter. Sometimes you got injuries. Sometimes your opponent pulls out. There's so many things can go wrong more than right. So I'm 26 years old. I'm gonna be a fucking old man before I become rich. Like, like you're trying to hit the lottery. You want to get the fuck out of there. You want to maximize profit and get out of there. And I'm like, I gotta kill someone. Like, how am I gonna make all this money? You know what I mean? And like people see the Conor McGregor. I mean, that's so hard. Like people don't realize. Like, I'm not speaking in behalf of Conor McGregor. I'm talking about the middle class fighters, the fighters who struggle. You know what I mean? They win 2 fights, they lose a couple of fights. They win a couple of fights, they lose a couple of fights. Like, but they put on good shows. Like they're dedicated, they're hard workers. Like just like a blue collar. I call myself a blue collar man because I gotta wake up every day. I don't have the luxury to go out and party and drink and go into the gym. Like some guys are lucky like that. Some guys are just fortunate. They're very talented. I did not have that talent. I had to work hard. I had to like trust strangers. You know what I mean? I had to trust strangers to kind of take care of me. Like I don't have a father who was a coach. I didn't have a father who was a manager. Like, you know what I mean? Like I got all these guys who are just money hungry, and I get it. I mean, I'm not dumb. I get the business, but I mean, treat me as a human, right? So,
right.
This is like, so what I'm trying to like. This is the thing, right? It's about my uprising. My parents came from really nothing. Then getting into the UFC, then like the payouts were very small. because they're not. I mean, what's $6,000? What if you lose that fight? What's $6,000? You just train for 2-3 months. Like think about that. Like if you really calculate it, it's not really. I mean, you're supposed to be in the major league sports. Like why you're supposed to have some type of security. There is no security. And what I'm trying to say is like, I believe that MMA is big enough to have a better payout structure, because I rather get a pay cut on fight night, have some type of annually salary where like, hey, you know what, we'll pay. You're signed to the UFC, for example. Let's use the UFC because it's the biggest name. So like, okay, you're in the UFC, so you must be good. Obviously, you must be good if you're in the fucking UFC. I mean, I can't. If you're just coming off the fucking streets and you're in the UFC, there's a problem, right? So anyone that is in the UFC, they have to be good to a certain extent. I mean, they should be like, hey, you're in the UFC, we'll guarantee you X amount of money. Forget about win or lose. They should be like, hey, we're gonna give you X amount of money. We'll guarantee you. This is guaranteed money for you. That should be number one. Number two is coaches and managers should make money where they're not just taking it from the fighter, but there's money coming somewhere else where you're not putting all the pressure on the fighter, because now the fighter's like, fuck, I'm like, oh, this is the money I gotta pay all these people. It's very stressful for the fighter, because this should come. I don't know how, but they should come up with a way where managers and coaches are getting paid, where it's not directly getting taken from the fighters' pockets, because we're not making that much to begin with.
Right.
So either the big giant steps in and be like, you know what, well, because we understand the dedication and the hard work, they don't care. It's like, no, you're an average. You're the well, you know what I mean? They don't care. I had to pay for my medicals. My pocket came out of my. They took it away from my purse. The medicals, I had to pay for that. I had to pay for my coaching. I had to pay for my flights. I had to pay to get an extra room for my team to have. I have to give them money. The UFC gave me $700 for my stay in Australia. I gave all that money to my team because they have to eat, right? I have to give them like the minimal it's called per diem,
right?
Like for food allowance. Like I gotta pay their hotel. I gotta take care of them. So I was very lucky. I'm a hustler. Like, what does that mean? Like, okay, I'll take this money, I'll give it to them, let them be happy, and I'll find a way to like make sure I got my meals taken care of. I'm cutting the weight because I gotta keep my mind right. I gotta tell the guy, hey, listen, I need you here at this time. I need you at this time. I need you to pretend you care about me, and like be my cheerleader for like an hour so I can get through the fucking grind and get through my workout, and like I gotta teach this guy how to hold pads for me, because I just met the guy, but I have an extended martial arts style. I have an extended martial arts resume where I've been doing this since I was 6 years old. This guy doesn't know me when I was 6 years old. He doesn't understand where my mind is at, how I fight, why I move the way I move, why do I like to hit like this, and why do I kick like that. This guy just met me at an adulthood for 10 weeks, and we have to like click, and I have to take him with me to my fight. You see how stressful this can be?
Yeah.
So these are all things behind the scenes that most, and these are things that most people don't really know. Like, man, like, there's so much that goes behind. Like, there's so much preparation and stress, physically and mentally and emotionally, and all these years of baggage and trauma you're carrying on to that one fucking fight.
Yeah,
and I just felt like maybe I need people to understand that part.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get it. I mean, the fight game it's not for everybody, man. It really isn't, and it's that small percentage that actually get into it, and it's sad that it's not as lucrative as it should be, right? I mean, yes, you see boxers making all this type of money, but not every boxer is making that type of money. It's only the 1% of those boxers, and you have all those undercard fighters that aren't big names. What are they making? They're not making a ton of money either. They're pretty much in the same boat as a lot of MMA fighters too. So it's I don't know what the solution is. What are your thoughts on like a fighters union, like the NFL has, and all these other professional sports have. They have people to speak on their behalfs to, come to agreements on things like this, fighter pay, and all the other workings of salaries and medicals and things like that. Like, what is your take on it, and why do you think that hasn't happened yet?
Well, it's very simple. It's nobody wants to dip into their pockets. There's an expression: the rich gets richer, and the poor gets poorer.
Yeah.
And like that's the reality. It's like I don't care what anyone says. It's easy to talk when you're successful. It's easy to be like, hey, I invested in this. I made this much money. You wanna learn how? You know what I'm talking about? You see all those guys on TikTok and on YouTube.
Yeah.
Hey man, I'm gonna teach you how to make 7 figures. Like, just buy my book. Like, get the fuck out of it. Like, come on, man. If you're so fucking rich, if I'm so rich, I'm not gonna tell anyone to. Why would I be pitching you something?
Right.
If I'm rich, like I'm not even rich and I'm under the radar. Like, what does that mean? Like, I learned it the hard way. What does that mean? I became a UFC fighter. I made some money. So what happened to me? I wanted to drive the nice car. I wanted the luxurious lifestyle. But that shit costs money. You know what I'm trying to say to you? So it's like, now I'm like, I want to drive a car. Nobody recognizes me. I understand now why the rich people dress like bums, because they don't want that attention on them. I don't want. I'm dressing in a hoodie. I'm dressing like, and then also the other thing was, I'm spending so much money on clothes. I'm like, fuck this shit. I'm just gonna spend money on my own clothes. If I'm gonna spend money, I'm just gonna do it wearing my own name. And obviously, I got that inspiration from obviously Floyd Mayweather. Like, Floyd is a good business model, but also Floyd is one of a kind. Like, you know what I mean? It is what it is. Like, let's just call spades a spade. Like, Floyd was was born in a fighting family, went to Vegas. Like, yes, yes, he says, he made that happen. I do believe in that. Of course, he made that happen, but sometimes people get lucky. And luck is basically, for me, is like being at the right time at the right place. You know what I mean? Like, if I was born, you know what I mean? Like, so what I'm trying to say, like, he was born in the U.S., born in a fighter's family. So, you know what I mean? Trying to say, like, I wasn't born in a fighter's family. Like, my parents are not athletes. Nobody in my family, nobody in my bloodlines was an athlete. So I had to kind of, figure shit out on my own. I traveled the world to become a better fighter. You know what I'm trying to say? So what I'm trying to say is, like, so for me, it's like sometimes you're given a shitty hand. You have to, and you're dealt a shitty hand, and you got to work with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm very lucky because I'm just trying to be like, hey, like, this is the truth, and I'm not saying like it's all negative. It's not. There's a lot of positive to this. There's always a silver lining to this. My thing was like, hey man, like, I'm a UFC. I've been UFC for 13 years. I performed very well in my last fight, and I'll be the first guy to criticize myself. Like, you know what? Like, I'm the first guy to be like, fuck, you know what? I did not perform that night. You know what I mean? I woke up that day and I'm like, the switch was off, and I just mentally, I wasn't on, and the guy was the better man. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, I'm okay with that. But my last fight, I just felt there was no justice, because I truly believed in my heart that I won that fight. And I performed very well under the circumstances, being my last fight. I was going in there with a lot of pressure. I was going into hometown favor.
Yep.
I was going to. I was in an airplane for fucking 15 hours. I had to go in there. I had to go to Australia 2 weeks in advance, because I needed to adjust to the time. I needed to get, like, settled. I needed to get my meals. I needed to train. I need to find a gym. I needed to find. I've been like I'm like hustling, trying to get all these things set so I can give the best chances for myself to win the fight. Like that's another thing. Like where the public doesn't know. Like, hey, like holy shit, John, you like that's a lot of work, right? I mean, just you listening to me talk, aren't you overwhelmed? I mean, I'm overwhelmed by just talking to you.
I mean, the life of a fighter is no joke, man. I mean, the what you have to go through is not what a normal person has to go through that has just a regular 9-to-5 job. You know what I mean? And the intense anxiety and not knowing what's going to happen next. You know, you don't know. Even if you win, you can still get cut. We've seen it happen. We've seen it happen numerous times. Even if it was a great performance, we've seen fighters get cut. We've seen, I think it was Mike Breeden, who just had a third-round knockout, comeback win in his last fight on his contract. Didn't get released, but didn't get renewed. I'm like, damn. It's like at that point, what do you have to do? You know what I mean? He put on a great performance. He came out there. He put on a show for the fans. He got a knockout, but it wasn't good enough apparently. So it's like that's the type of thing that I feel for, because you don't know what's next. You could be gone at any given time. You can get an injury, and then there goes your career. Anything can happen. You could slip on a banana peel. You could tear your ACL. I mean, it's just insanity, in the world of combat sports, and there's too much uncertainty, and I want to be able to deal with it. Even if I was an actual fighter, I wouldn't be able to deal with the anxiety and the pressure of, I don't know where my money's going to come from when I have to train 24/7 and, I have no fight coming up, or I'm only fighting once or twice a year. And it's just, it's too much. And I understand where you're coming from. And I feel for all fighters that are trying to make their name for themselves, trying to, get into the UFC. There's a lot of, I have a lot of friends that are on the regional scene that are, they have hopes of fighting for the UFC. And, I wish them the best. I hope they make it there, because that's their dream. But it's like at the same time, I wish they would get like a more lucrative job doing something else at the same time. You know what I mean? But I just hope the best for everybody, and hopefully they get paid out. But I mean, it's a lot easier said than done.
100%, and I agree with you. And for me, my personal experience was like, I wanted to share with you my journey. If I go back to when I was in my 20s, I have a lot of regrets. I would have done a lot of things differently. And what does that mean? That means sometimes I ask myself, I reflect, and I'm like, what if I continued my schooling, got a degree, but here's the thing. It's like, okay, well, if I continue my schooling and gave fighting maybe, let's just say 50% of my heart versus 100% of my heart, would I still be as successful? So it's very hard, because there are fighters who have other jobs and who were successful. But for me, I just felt like if I wasn't all in, I wasn't sure if I was able to live with myself. Because going back, I wish I kind of like had a plan B. Everyone's like, you should always have a plan B and C and D. But now I got a fucking plan from A to fucking Z, because I'm fucking so traumatized by my experience. I have so much trauma. I'm so fucked up. I'm so like broken that I have so much insecurities that I have like 20,000 plans. Like every day I wake up, I'm always like, okay, I gotta create 10 sources of income. Like I gotta create like right now I'm like fucking, I have to have 5 jobs. I have to have 6 jobs, because I never know, like, oh, I got the fucking government wants to take my money. I got this girl who's dating me because she only cares about what I give her. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, life is really fucked up. You know what I mean? And people don't want to talk about this stuff because it makes it uncomfortable. But I want to talk about it because you know what? Fuck you. Everything is uncomfortable. I'm not comfortable. I have to go. I sacrificed everything. I left home. So this is another thing that people don't know about me. In my career, I tried so hard. I'm a very routine guy. Okay, what does that mean? I'm very routine. Like I try to make something. I try to make everything's very convenient. Like go home, go to the gym, and go to the arena. Like UFC was always coming down to Montreal. If you look at the era of GSP, UFC was always coming down, and I was like very lucky because I was like, oh great, UFC is coming down and I'm on the undercard of George St. Pierre. I would always fight on the undercard of GSP in Montreal. Like, what's a better scenario for a fighter? Train at home, go back to his fucking house, to his own fucking bed, and go to the arena that he's very familiar with, where the people like him because I'm from there. Hometown advantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that shit, that was no more. UFC, the original owner sold the company. Joe Silva was my matchmaker. Great guy. He would be like, hey, John, this is what we offer you, 4 fights. 3-4 opponents. Like, they would actually give me a fucking option. Like, that was like cool. I'm like, oh, that's cool. You know what I mean? You would get, because here's the thing. Fighting is a business. So what does that mean? It's not an ego thing. It's not a tough man sport. It's not about, oh, I got bigger muscles than you. No, man, this is a fucking business. You want to have a clean record. You want to fight guys. You want to fight guys that are equal to you, right? You want to fight guys who are equal to you. So it gives you the best chance to win, to make more money, and to have a good history. But when you're in the UFC, they don't give a fuck about that. They don't care about, oh, John's been only training for 3 years, mixed martial arts. We're gonna give him a guy. No, they're gonna be like, oh, this is the guy. You gotta fight him. You're like, hold on a second. This guy's been fighting for 20 years. Has 80 fights. Potentially he's on steroids. Like, I fought. I'm like 7-0 in the UFC, and I have to say, my first fight was a fair fight. Like, I fought a guy, Pat Otterwood. He was 9-1. I was 7-0. That was a fair fight. He had a couple more fights. Then my second fight, I fought Kyle Watson, and then he was on the Ultimate Fighter, and he was a little bit more, had that more experience, but I fought him, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, you gotta take a risk. Yeah. Being a fighter, it's all about high risk. It's high risk, high reward. Dana White says that, right? There's certain things I agree with Dana White, and obviously there's other things I don't really agree with him. It's like, hey, I'm your guy. I'm not on drugs. Like, I'm not crazy. I don't do crazy shit. Like, I'm very passionate. I'm very intense. Like, I just need good training. I need to surround myself with guys who actually love. I want to surround with guys who love me, not just because whatever I bring to the table. And Dana White used to message me all the time, you know what I mean? And then he just ghosts me, man. Like, I just feel like that's fucked up. You ghosting me, like I give, blood, sweat, and tears. Like, okay, cool. At least be a man and be like, hey, John, thank you so much for all your time, but business is business, and we gotta cut you. We respect you for all the years, but we'll just release you and wish you all the best. I would have more respect for him if he actually said that to me. But I get it. We live in a world of ghosting now. There's a fucking. I mean, listen. I'll admit it. Sometimes I ghost a fucking girl. Sometimes a girl's blowing my. Sometimes a girl's blowing my fucking phone. I'm like, what the fuck? This is. I'm not blowing his fucking phone. I'm not like blowing him up. I'm like, oh, I'm not texting him impulsively. I'm like, I'm being a gentleman. I'm expressing myself. Some girls are crazy. They'll fucking like, why aren't you texting me? Why don't you want to talk to me? Then, okay, I get it. I gotta ghost them. Like, I'm not saying I'm perfect. I mean, but this is business. Like I've been in the UFC for 13 years. You know what I'm trying to say? So I go into Australia. I'm not really happy with Australia, but Australia is a beautiful country. Like this is the thing, right? I don't want to sound negative. There's a lot of positive because I went to Australia. I met good people. I met very good people. I met lovely people, very kind, very supportive. I was just like, hey man, I just feel like I feel hurt, and I just wanted to kind of reach out to at least and then reach out to someone like in your world, and be like, hey, you're. And I know people know this already. It's not I'm not the first guy, and I won't be the last guy. There's endless, endless. You know what I mean? Like people committing suicide. I mean, I had suicidal thoughts. Like that's like let's be real. I had suicidal thoughts. Anyone that doesn't have suicidal thoughts at one point in their lives is full of shit. Like I was scared every time I would fight, and I was always scared. I was fearful. Um, Anybody that says, "Oh, I'm not scared," well, you know what? You're a fucking psychopath.
It's true though. I mean, like, how can you not be scared going in, lock
Some
yourself
guys,
in a cage with another human being that literally wants to kill you? Let's be honest.
I don't know. That's the thing. Like I was always scared. Like I fucking used to hate it. Like I'm like, I'm like, this is just like, you know what I mean? Like what motivated me to be going to to pursue this crazy life was just like, I don't want to work for somebody. You know, I'm not gonna become a gangster because I don't want to die maybe in the streets. Like I'm not gonna go and start robbing people. Uh, but here's the thing: it's like I'm a fighter. I was good at it, and I kind of just took it with me. And also, my mother was my motivation. Like I was just fed up with my parents always fighting over money all the time. You know, my mom, my father always fighting over money, and I was just like tired of that. And I just wanted to do something special with my life where I can contribute to my family. So I had that opportunity. So I mean, if you really think about it, like that was my motivation. It was just like financial freedom. Some fighters they generally love to fight, and I take my hats off them. I always hated fighting, and I just want to make you understand something. I love. I just hated how it made me feel. Like like the pressure, um, the anxiety. You know what I mean? I just felt all like it just all this expectation. Um if I came from rich family, if I came from a successful family, if I came, maybe I would never felt that maybe because my mom, my father wouldn't expect me to give them money all the time. But I don't want to make them feel bad. Like they're great parents. Like I love my parents. Like they just did the best they could. Not everybody has rich parents. You know what I mean? Like I grew up back at home, in Montreal, where my friends' fathers were like let's be real, they're fucking gangsters. They lived in mansions. Like uh, their fathers were giving them money all the time. Like my father didn't give me money. I had to figure shit out on my own. So what I'm trying to say is that with my life play out differently. But what I'm trying to say is like, uh, what I'm trying to say is like the payouts are not the best. Maybe hopefully now it's like 25 years later. Now you see like PFL, PFL. Oli Obeng was my training partner. I would fucking beat the shit out of him. He came into he came into mixed martial arts later than I did, and I would fight him in the sparring. This guy, I'm so happy for him, and I wish I was in his shoes right now. The guy just won the PFL tournament. Just banked. He just banked like $2 million, and I'm like, fuck.
Yep.
I wish I was. I just missed that boat. You know what I mean? I'm like, fuck. I'm like, I wish I was there. Like it's just crazy how life is. You know, here I am stuck in the UFC where they pay little, but everyone knows the UFC. So it's like, okay, well, do you stay in the UFC and take a pay cut, or do you try to go somewhere where you can potentially win a tournament and make a big prize at the end? So now, like PFL, signed Bellator, and now I'm like a free agent, and I'm like, oh, I want to go into PFL, but now it's too late. I missed the boat because everybody wants to go to PFL now because now they see a fighter winning $2 million. Like back in those days, Pride used to do tournaments, and they would, and that's why Pride was so huge. But the thing is, I understand from a company perspective, because they're like, well, hold on a second, we can't give everybody $1 million, we'll go broke. And I get it. I'm not telling the UFC, hey, give everybody $1 million. I'm not saying be Santa Claus, but come on, man. I think you can do a better payout. You can do a better pay structure. Like I said, maybe less money on fight night, but give us a salary so we have money where it's like we're not stressing all the time. We have enough money to pay trainers and to pay managers, and also give us an opportunity to build different income streams.
Yeah, of course.
You're a big enough company. Like Dana White is our father. He's like they call him big, Dana, Mr. Dana, like daddy, right?
Yeah.
Like I get it. Like, yeah, I get it. It's capitalism. I get it. You're the champion. But not everybody's gonna become a champion. Like let's be real. You're not gonna become a champion. Not everyone is a champion. There's only one belt. Like,
right.
I wanted to become a champion. That was my dream, is to become a champion. But sometimes that shit don't work out. So how was all the other fighters left with? Because here's the thing. You can't. Here's the thing. I'm gonna ask you a question. Why don't they just make one fight per event, pay-per-view? Like, why is it just Conor McGregor fighting the whole event? Why is there 12 other fights on the card? Why do they have to fill up the card for it? Like, do you ever think about that? If you don't care about the guy who's fighting the prelims, like, how does it make sense the guy in the prelims is making $6,000 and the main event is making $1 million? Like that, there's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with the system.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how that even works, because like if you look at the payout structure of like some of these events, right? They're maybe totaling anywhere from, like, big pay-per-views, we're talking like anywhere from $2 to $3 million in payouts. But do you see how much money and revenue they're bringing in on those huge events, and they're only paying out $2 to $3 million for their fighters? It's insane. That's a small fraction of what their actual revenue is just from ticket sales. That's not literally any of the pay-per-view sales, because I don't, it's easier to get, ticket sale numbers versus, actual pay-per-view sale numbers. But, you're talking about, like, it's such a small fraction to the people that are getting punched in the face and getting all this injuries for, everybody's enjoyment. It's just crazy to me.
Well, here's another thing. So I'll ask you another question. It's like, okay, well, here's a guy like me, for example. I dedicated my whole life to martial arts. So now, at the age of 38 now, I got to start a whole new career. I got to learn a whole new skill. I got to learn a whole new trade. And I mean, that's fucking intense. Like, I don't think that's fair for someone like me, because at the end of the day, I feel like UFC is big enough to be like, hey man, you've been signed with us for 13 years. We'll get you a job. I don't care if it's a fucking it can be any job. I'm not, you know what I mean? Like, hey, we'll take care of you. We'll make sure you're taken care of. Like, just like soldiers. Like soldiers, you hear this a lot about soldiers, Like, hey, fighters, I think, how come NFL has unions? How come MLB has union? But here's the thing. Okay, well, if fighting is not like them, like they say, I'm not gonna say names, but let's just say they, and everyone knows what I'm talking about, right? So these big companies that are the promoters sign the fighters, right? So they're like, well, we're not gonna start a union. That's doesn't make sense. Well, hold on a second. So then why do you treat us as employees, but yet we're self-contractors? Because they don't want no liabilities. They don't want you to go anywhere. So basically, when you're signed to a promotion, they have all exclusive rights on you. They can do whatever the fuck. They can use your name. You're their bitch.
Yep.
Let's call it. Let's just be real. You're their bitch, but if you use your own fights to promote yourself, no, that's illegal. You can't do that. But hold on a second. I'm not an employee, but why you treat me like an employee when you're not? I'm not an employee. It's very confusing. We're treated as independent contractors, but yet we're not. We have all exclusive rights. So that for me didn't make any sense. And you know, I was one of those guys. I was scared to speak up because obviously you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you. I'm not trying to bite the hand. I'm not trying to bite the hand that feeds me. I'm just be like, hey, whoa, hold on a second. Did I get something? Am I fucked up in the head? Am I crazy? Like, I dedicated myself. I do exactly what you did. I do exactly what you tell me. Go out there, fight your fight, fight your heart out, and don't worry, we'll get your back. We'll take care of you. That didn't happen. I got thrown in the streets.
It's unfortunate because like it's funny because the UFC is just like any other business because everybody's replaceable. You know, that's just how it is. That's how you have to like go through life, unfortunately, unless you're working for yourself. You know what I mean? Everyone is replaceable. So, you know, even the people that work the hardest, that go above and beyond and put in the hours, put in the blood, sweat, and tears, unfortunately, they don't always, you know, come out on top. They aren't always the ones that get treated the best. They're sometimes the ones that get fucked over more than the people that just kind of skate on by. And it sucks, but I mean, that's business. And that's how I've, you know, gone through business in, you know, in my life, not obviously as a fighter, but, you know, like I've worked hard in jobs, but then it's come to a point where it's like, how hard am I really gonna, you know, put into this if I'm not getting anything out of it? You know, they'll give someone else a promotion instead of me. That's happened, you know, numerous times. Just like in fighters, you'll work your hardest. You put on a great show, but someone else will get the fight that you want instead of you. Why? You know, you don't know why. Just they feel like pushing this person and not you. So the business is all fucked up in all different types of ways, where it's, you know, fighting or it's just a regular person working a 9 to 5. But at the end of the day, everyone's replaceable, and that's how pretty much the UFC runs things. You're replaceable. Everybody's replaceable. Oh, you want to fight? You don't want to fight? Okay, you're gone. This person will fight. We'll take him instead. And it's unfortunate, but that's how the business works.
100%. So let's recap. You know, my thing was just like, hey, whatever you guys hear on social media, that's all false. Fighters struggle. Post traumatic stress does exist.
Yes.
Mental health does. I'm not like you got that guy Joe. You got that guy. What's that fighter's name? He just fought. He always talks about his drug addiction.
Oh, Jared Gordon. Yeah.
Jared Gordon. Yeah. I trained with him in Milwaukee. I trained with him, and I actually called him up because I thought it would have been a good fight between me and him. And hey, I mean, listen, you know, I mean, it's like he keeps talking about his abuse and drugs and how it helped him, and like now he's a UFC fighter, and obviously he has a platform, so he wants to help out other drug users, which is a great thing. But I mean, why you keep talking about it? You know what I mean? So it's like, I'm just saying, like, for me, I feel like, including myself, we all have, like, even with my career, okay, about, like, people are like, oh, John, you got to sell yourself. You got to sell yourself. You got to play the role, play the image, blah, blah, blah. Like, what the fuck? But hold on a second, man. That's not martial arts.
No.
What does the fundamentals, the principle of martial arts? Martial arts is self-defense. You're going into a gym because you want to feel good about yourself. You want to learn skills. You want to learn self-defense. You want to build your self-esteem, your confidence, your physique, look good, perform good, feel good. Not I'm not doing that because I want to hurt you. I'm not doing that because I want to feel better than you. I'm not doing that because I want to put you down and put myself higher than you. But that's what sports and combat entertainment became. It became WWE. This is not fucking WWE. Good guy and bad guy. You know, someone has to play the good guy and someone has to play the bad guy. You know, someone has to be a loser and someone has to be the winner. So what I'm trying to say is like, okay, that's cool, but I just want to be who I am. You know, I'm tired of people trying to tell me, John, you should be like this and John should be like that. That's another thing that I never talked about. You know, like people always are trying to influence you to be something that you're not. And I always try to be authentic to myself. I always try to be, respectful. After every fight, I would always, unless I don't like you, if I generally don't like you, I'm very transparent. But majority of my fights, after the fight, I would always be like, hey, I'm sorry. I would apologize. Sometimes I would hug my opponent and I would apologize. Like, think about that. Think about all the stress. Like, I'm getting ready to fight you. I have to paint this image of like, I gotta destroy you. I gotta hate you. Like, it's fucked up. Like, it turns you into this world, this sport, it turns you into an animal that you're not really happy with, because it's a conflict of interest of, you're trying to be a good person, but yet you're hurting people. Do you see fucked up? You see how fucked up that is?
Yep, that's true. You know, how do you bring that mindset from, you're an actual nice person, right? But then you have to take that switch and be a demon and essentially try to kill your opponent.
Yo, I'm at the gym, so I'll tell you a story. Like, I'm at the gym and I'm like, I gotta train. I'm at the gym and I'm like, I gotta get my mind right. You know, it's a sparring day. Like, okay, I gotta spar. Like, I gotta be like, okay, well, I gotta go to my dark side. I gotta put the switch on. You know what I mean? And I got a training partner. I got a training partner who's like fucking wants to hurt me, like for real. I'm like, so me, I sense his energy. You know what I'm trying to say? I'm like, hey, hold on a second, bro. This is just fucking friendly fire. Like, I get injured. This is a true story. I get injured by a fucking monkey that he's just, because some people are just maliciously bad people. Like, I don't believe everyone is a good person. I do believe in my heart there are evil people out there.
Yeah.
Like, there are fighters. There is fighters out there that exist who generally love hurting people. Like, I don't like hurting people. I have to hurt them before they hurt me. That's my philosophy. It's like, I gotta hurt you before you fucking hurt me.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm trying to say? It's like, I'm like, I gotta hurt you, because if I don't hurt you, you're gonna hurt me. So it's like, so now I developed, this is like from a young age, 6 years old. This has been happening since 6 years old, right? Because you're in the gym at a young age and you're competing with another guy, and the teacher's like, hey, beat the shit out of each other. Like, straight up. Your coach is like, you guys have to beat up each other. Like that. Forget about the technique, but let's just be real. Like, I have a kid. I bring him to martial art. My kid comes home crying. I don't have a kid. I wish I did have a kid. But let's say if my kid, I brought him into a martial art environment, he gets fucking choked out, tapped out, knocked out, or whatever happens to him. I gotta be like, I gotta dust him off. I gotta be like, hey, stop crying. It's okay to cry, let it out. But now you have to go back into the gym and train harder and smarter.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: I'm teaching my kid how to become a bigger bully, because ideally you would be like, ideally in a real life situation, you don't want to go into a conflict, right? Like, in a situation, you never want to hurt the guy. I would never be like, hey, throw the punch. But unfortunately, we live in a world where it's like, I got to tell my kid, hey, beat the fuck out of him, because if you don't beat him up, he's going to beat you up. That's the fucking truth. Because I don't want my fucking kid getting a beating. So
Right.
so what do you do as a parent, right? So so here's the thing, you know what I mean? It's like, hey, you gotta fucking beat him up. So as a parent, I gotta be like, I gotta toughen him up. I can't make him soft. I gotta make him hard. So I gotta be like, hey, I'm like, hey, stop crying. Now you gotta train harder now. Why
Yeah.
did you get hurt? Oh, okay, well, why did you feel? Why did you have doubt in your head? Or I didn't want to hurt him. Well, you don't want to hurt him. Well, he fucking hurt you. So what are you gonna do now? Then you know what I'm trying to say? It's psychological. It's very twisted, right? So what I'm trying to say is like this is happening to me as a kid. Now I'm an adult, and now I'm in a UFC environment, and we're beating the shit of each other. And now you're like, you're making money, and you're like all this attention, and like dealing with governments and taxes, and like fast forward to adulthood, and now you're like, now the UFC's like, oh, okay, well, thank you for your time. You know, wish you the best of luck. And now you're like, what the fuck? And now you're like alone in your bed, and you're just like, everything hits you at once. It's like a fucking depression. So how do I beat my depression? Is I gotta like pretend nothing happened. I gotta like wake up every day. I go to the gym. I'm training every day like I have a fight coming up. I wake up every day trying to create opportunities to create income, trying to build network. Like every day I'm living my life like nothing happened. But that's not good because all I'm doing is suppressing my feelings.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's, you know, I can't even like, imagine being in your shoes because, I mean, if I were to lose my jobs, I don't know what I would do. Let's just be honest, because you know I have a family to provide for, and I'd be the same way. I'd be like, I'm like even right now, I have jobs, right? But I'm always looking for more. You know, I'm always looking to do more, be more, just so I can provide for my family, and just so that there's some comfort, and I know that there's always going to be something there. I have people that are depending on me, just like I know you have your family depending on you. It's a rough, you know, it's rough, and now you have to go and you grinded your whole life, and you're like, I finally made it, right? And you're in the UFC for over 10 years, and now it's like, what do you have to show for it? Now you have to go back to the grind and do it again. It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, I'm back. I'm back in the gym. I'm fucking back in the drawing board. I'm looking for any organization that's gonna really that is willing to sign me up. But here's the thing: what sucks the most is nobody cares about me getting robbed. Nobody cares about, oh, how did John fight, or where did he fight, who's his opponent, and the judges. People only look at my record. All they see is two losses. John is coming off losses. They don't recognize that I got fucking robbed. I broke my hand. I had 7 surgeries in 2 years. No one cares about. No one cares about my surgeries. No one cares about my struggles. My own mother, that I would die for. My mom, you know how much it hurt me the most? She's like, I don't understand. Like, how come you lost your last fight? And how do I explain a mother who's an immigrant, who's in her 70s, who doesn't even understand fighting? Just so you guys understand, my mother doesn't even understand. Like, she has an idea, but my parents don't really understand like the extension of what it takes to be a UFC fighter, and like all the emotional abuse and the mental abuse and the physical abuse that we have to endure as a fighter to make it happen. Like there's a reason why they say diamonds are made out of pressure. We have to take so much shit in order for us to succeed.
Yep.
We're like, you know what I mean? So my own mother's like, you used to win your fights. And I know that she did not mean bad, but imagine your own mother's telling you, you used to win your fights, what happened to you? Like, that shit fucking killed me, because it was like, I'm like, man, like, I'm like, fucking judges. Like, it sucks that, you know, they're like, don't leave it up to the judges, but Dana White. Yeah, Dana White. It's easy for Dana White to say that. Don't leave it up to the judges. I'm training another trained opponent. Like, this guy studied me. Like, we live in 2023. Everything's on social. back in the old days, you couldn't study your opponent. There was no footages. There was no footages on your opponent back in the 50s and the 60s. Now everybody is studying everybody, and now there's a whole scientific approach to things. And it's like, hey, I'm fighting a guy. He's not gonna stay there. Like my last opponent, my whole training camp, I was getting ready for someone to try to wrestle with me, for someone to try to take me down. No, the whole training camp, everybody was fucking trying to take me down, like Khabib style, like fucking wrestle with me and like hold on to me and like ground and pound. This fucking guy did the complete opposite. What did he do? He played the distance. He kept his distance, and he kept on kicking me like low kicks, and like it was like he did go for a takedown, but once maybe. But what I'm trying to say is like that's the thing about fighting. Like that's the thing people don't know. Like, hey man, you can be ready for something, you can be prepared for something, and then you go in that environment, and the guy is not gonna do that. And now you're relying on fucking judges. I don't know who the fuck are the judges. I don't know what the fuck they're watching. For all I know, the guy can throw a strike and he literally misses me completely, and like and the fucking crowd be like, oh, but no damage. Like look at my face, no damages. But he gets the fucking decision because of favoritism, because of influence, because of he's the hometown. This guy's a fucking visitor. Fuck this guy. Oh, it was a close fight. What the fuck does that mean? It's a close fight? No, it's not a close. It's not a close fight. I'm a fighter. I'm gonna get hit. That's a given. That's what makes me a fighter. A police officer goes to the crime. He might get shot. He might get killed. A fireman goes into the fire. That's a given. I'm a fighter. We're gonna take blows, but it's what do you do after the blows? Like, hey, he gave me one shot. I gave him two shots. He tried to take me down. I stuffed the takedown. He kicked me. I caught his kick. I took him down. I fucking dropped him. How the fuck? I was backing him up most of the fight. I had the control of the octagon. How the fuck does he win the fight? You tell me. Oh, because he landed a punch? Oh, because he kicked me a couple times? Yeah, obviously I'm gonna get fucking hit. I'm in the fight. I'm in the crossfire. Of course, I'm in the crossfire, and I'm in the crossfire. I'm gonna get hit. What does that mean? What? Oh, he kicked you. He hit you. I don't even understand. Like, what are you basing on the judge? Like, how is judges like? And you see it, and like you see it a lot. Like you see a lot of fights being missed. Like, how the fuck did this guy win the fight? Sometimes I'm watching a fight. I'm like, how the fuck did this guy? How did this guy win the fight?
We've seen it. I mean, it happens every single week. I mean, and the thing is, like, the judges supposedly know what the scoring criteria is, but every judge in their eyes sees something completely different. They all see something completely different, and I don't. So what do you do at that point?
So here's the thing. So now so here's the thing, right? So this is like what the public doesn't know. Like, yeah, for you guys, you're watching a fight, you're being entertained, and then and then you guys move on to the next guy. But that person, that human being, he's traumatized now. Why? Because that decision is gonna fuck his whole life. That robbery is gonna fuck his whole life. What do I mean? Number one, if you don't win the fight, your paycheck is cut by half.
Yep.
It's like me telling you, you're a worker. You're a 9 to 5 worker. You're putting in the hours. At the end of the check, at the end of the week, you're all happy because you're getting ready to get paid, and you see your check and you're like, what the fuck? Where's my fucking money? And I'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, we couldn't give it. We had to take half of the money away from you because you decided. I'm just saying, like, obviously it's gonna be hard for me to compare apples and oranges, but you feel me? Like, it's like, I just lost the fight. I might get cut. I might not get paid. I got all this bullshit that I gotta fucking endure now. Like, what the fuck? So, like, the fight is ended, but like, I fought in September. So my fight was in September, and every fucking day Now we're in what? Now we're almost in Christmas. Now we're almost in December. And guess what? I'm still living that fucking night.
Oh man, that's get it back again. I don't. That's something that's gonna stick with you forever. You know, I mean, it's not the first time. I mean, you seen it in the Ignacio Bahamondes fight too, right? I remember that. You know, I remember that fight. I remember it vividly. I mean, everybody's like, what the fuck? You know, and then the Jamie Mullarkey fight, and it was just fucking icing on the cake at that point.
I don't know. I mean, I'm at a point where it's like, I was scared to talk. I was always like, "Hey, be a good worker. Shut your fucking mouth. Say thank you to Dana." You know.
Like everybody, you're not the only one. Everybody's the same way. I mean, I don't want to, take shots at Dana White because I haven't had any run-ins with him. He seemed cordial when I met him briefly one time, but I mean, he's a businessman at the end of the day. But I mean, it just sucks what fighters like yourself have to endure. You know, it's a slippery slope, man. I mean, and that's why a lot of these fighters go through depression and anxiety and all this stuff that they go through, and that's why they have sports psychology. A lot of them are doing now sports psychologists and things like that because like you said, the mental game is just it's too much for some of them. You know what I mean? And if you talk about it, you act like you're bitching and you feel like you're going to get cut because you're talking about it. So then you have to talk to somebody else about it. But you talk about it, but nothing happens, right? Nothing's going to happen. You could talk, but nothing gets better. The judge's not going to get better. Your pay's not going to get better. And if you speak out about it, you probably will get cut and you probably will get a shitty fight next. You're not going to get a fight that you want. They'll just throw you to the wayside. They give you 1 or 2 fights a year, and then just enough to get your contract over and done with, and then they'll just, okay, we're done with you, goodbye. So that's why, you're all in the same boat. You know, you can't speak out. You can't.
So my solution is if just the top fighters all go on a strike. So think about this: if all the top fighters who have a name, have leverage, that go on a strike and just say, you know what, we're not going to fight no more. What is an organization like the UFC is going to happen to them?
I mean, I feel like they would have to do something. You know, I thought about that as well. But I feel like those fighters at the top, they're like, why would I do that for these other fighters when I'm making all this money? You know what I mean? It's a very selfish sport.
Yes. Yeah, I get that. And I understand that completely. But if everybody does it
collectively, right.
If everyone does it simultaneously, because it happens all the time. Like, how are unions formed?
Right.
By strikes, by a movement, right? And in the past, a lot of individual fighters who actually tried that, and it did not succeed. And the only reason why they did not succeed is because not everybody follows suit. Everybody has to, in the same fucking time, have to be like, we're not gonna fight until something changes. I don't expect to become rich. I'm not saying, hey, make us give us, but you're telling me, are you kidding me? You're making billions of dollars and you're giving me a check of $3,000.
Exactly.
Like, what the fuck? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, hold on a second. You're a corporation. You're making billions of dollars, and you're saying, thank you for your service. We're gonna give you a check for $3,000. What the fuck is $3,000? That's like going to your employee that is making you work. You're making them hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're like, oh, thank you for your, really appreciate you. We're gonna give you a 50 cents raise. Like 50 cents. You'd be like, fuck that shit. Keep the fucking 50 cents.
Yeah.
Go fuck yourself. Like, what the fuck? Like, you're giving me what the fuck is $3,000? How? Like, the fuck? Either like, I'm not, something's missing. Either like, so here's the thing. Why my other question is like, why is the fighters' pay public, but how come the UFC's pay is not public? Why is that private? Why is it private how much Zuffa makes?
I got no answer to that. I don't know. I mean, like, granted, fighter pay, depending on the, I guess, the region, is not disclosed. So the numbers that are probably out there are just kind of like estimated, but but sometimes they are disclosed. And then, but like, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the financial side of the business should be public if the fighters' salaries are essentially public.
NFL. I'm not a football player. I don't know. I'm not claiming to be a football, enthusiast, but from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, NFL and NBA and MLB, isn't it like between player and CEO, isn't it like a 50-40 cut or like a payout distribution?
Something along the lines of that. I don't know the actual.
So whatever.
Numbers,
Say 40-60. Let's just use.
But even boxing's the same way too. They have a 60-40 split. I mean, for the most part, 70-30 or whatever it is for like the top earners, right? Even like that. But
so what I'm trying to say is like there is I don't know where this source came out. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I saw on the net, and it caught my attention was UFC versus whole fighters payout. So there's how many fighters in the UFC? Maybe like 700 and counting. So the UFC as a whole and the payout to the fighters as a whole is 6%.
Yeah, I believe that.
Or like, I don't know. I heard something. I don't know if it was like, I'm like, hold on a second. I'm like, that for me is fucking crazy. If that's the truth, so hold on a second. You're telling me like you got this whole fucking pie, and you're giving the fighters a fucking not even a quarter of that pie.
Yeah.
Here's your piece for the. You know what I mean? Like, okay, well,
I think. I remember you were talking about it. I think. I don't think it's 6%. I think it's like around 16% of their like revenue or something like that is what they're giving to the fighters compared to the NFL, who I think they're giving like 40%. Or the bigger professional sports. Like they're getting very, very minimal compared to actual professional athletes.
So here's the thing. This is just like I'm just brainstorming. We're just like shooting the shit, right?
Right.
We're just kind of like talking and like I said again, you know what I mean? Like I'm not trying to talk bad about anybody. I'm not talking bad about anyone else. I'm just like, hey, these are all things that kind of were in my head for 13 years because I was always scared to speak about it, right?
Right.
So here's my other thing. Another thing about I wanted to share was like, so why like my thing is like my concern is like you say that we are employees, but we're not. So we're independent contractors, but we're not. So what does that mean? That means you can't go fight for. So say you're waiting for a fight. So say like, hey, we can only give you one fight a year, for example, because we got a lot of fighters and it's a fucking numbers game, and we're gonna like, hey, it's like rolling the dice, right? It's like, hey, you want to fight this guy? Take it or leave it because we got 100 other fighters that we have to fucking book, right?
Right.
But so you're like, okay, but hold on a second. If you guys have a lot of fighters and you guys are overwhelmed, let me just go and try to find somewhere else. Well, hold on a second. No, you can't do that. You can't do that because if we find out that you're trying to look for a better deal, we're gonna fucking cut you. So you're like, well, hold on a second. I can only fight once a year, potentially, and you're only gonna give me this much amount of money. I'm like, and I'm training full time, and I gotta pay my coaches, and I have to like have a living expense. So you're like, you're like fucking, you got fucking handcuffs. You're like you're literally in prison. So now you're a prisoner because you're on high alert, you're on high anxiety because you're like, I gotta keep my mouth shut because I don't want to lose my opportunity being in the UFC. And then you're like, because being in the UFC, there's opens up a lot of doors. What does that mean? That means I can look for sponsors. Like, look at that girl. For example, I was training today. I mean, I'm a guy. We don't go and fucking flex we're not naked. We're not doing like showing our ass. I was at the gym today doing my cardio, and a friend sends me an article about that girl who she won recently. This girl who she won, but she always twerks her ass.
Oh yeah, yeah. So, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, it's this UFC girl. This girl in the UFC, she twerks her ass. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's be real. I respect girl fighters. There's probably like a handful are legitimately good female fighters. I'm not a big fan of female fighters. I respect them, but this girl, she's not really a good fighter. But she has a big fucking ass. She got a big ass, and she knows how to twerk it. This girl goes online and says, "I make more money." This is how much this is. The thing about this, okay? Like, just comprehend this. She's like, "I make more money on OnlyFans than my fighting contract."
Yep, and she said how much she made too. How much she made on that contract too.
So here's the thing. Here's me, who's a real martial artist, who is like dedicated his life to fighting, and just like is barely living, surviving. And you got this fucking girl who has a big ass. I mean, I get it. Life is not fair. I get it. People are gonna be like, "Yeah, John, well, stop being butthurt. That's just life," or whatever. I'm not here complaining. I'm happy for her. Like, good for her. Like, hey, man,
right.
You're fucking making money. Yo, if I can make money on OnlyFans, hey, does anybody listening out there that can help me make money? I mean, let me know. But I'm not gonna be like fucking stripping. Fuck that shit. Like, I don't know how you make money on OnlyFans. So this girl made so much money on OnlyFans, and I don't give a fuck what anyone says about, oh yeah, OnlyFans, you can just take pictures. Well, who the fuck is paying someone just to take pictures? No, man, you must be doing something perverted or like something like. I don't fucking pay. I don't pay for OnlyFans.
Yeah, no.
I don't even understand like who's paying for OnlyFans. Like, strong man is a dying breed because those simps, those fucking guys who are paying, I don't know, porn is fucking free, man. Like,
that's exactly what I say every time when I hear about OnlyFans. It's like, what's the point? What's the point?
I never pay for an OnlyFans. I don't follow anybody on OnlyFans, and I see all those girls. Yes, they're sexy. Yes, they got a nice body, but I'm not gonna support that. And those people who are supporting that are making guys like us look bad. They're making guys who dedicated themselves, guys who are struggling, who are real martial artists, who are struggling. This fucking girl is twerking her ass, and she's making $30,000. Like, get the fuck out of here.
I don't know, man. I mean,
so I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I'm just tired of the bullshit, and so I'm like, anyways, that's a whole different topic. But the whole purpose behind this interview was just like, hey, I'm not really happy. Hopefully, like somebody who's rich, like that's another thing. It's like all these rich guys, all you rich guys in the world, you have so much fucking money to be like, I don't expect you guys to like, hey, we'll hand you money, but it's like, stop selling me your product. If you're so rich, why do I have to buy your book?
There's a reason why they're selling it, right?
Like, if I'm rich, like, I'll give you an example right now, okay? if a fighter comes to me right now, he's like, John, I got no money, but I wanna become a UFC fighter. I want you to train me. I want you to coach me. I'll be like, 100%. I'm gonna coach you. I'm gonna mentor you. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's like, hey, we all have to make money, but I'm gonna help you because you deserve it. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like all these rich guys who are fucking like the Andrew Tates, all these motherfuckers. You know what I mean? Like always like selling your fucking permits. Like
your pyramid schemes, yeah.
Yeah, you're literally selling your permanent schemes online for money. Yeah. But you're supposed to be rich. So why aren't you just fucking give everybody money?
Right. I mean, it's the same thing. Like one of my good friends who's an up and coming fighter, right? And I've been helping him along the way. I'm not a manager, you know. I don't do anything of the sort. But I've helped him secure some fights. I've helped him get linked up with his new management company as well. Why? Because I want him to succeed. I want him to get where he wants to be. And I want to help as much as I can, you know? And I would do that for anybody else if they need it. You know, I don't feel like some of these up and coming fighters should be giving money to managers until they get to possibly a substantial amount of money, because how are you going to live off that? You know what I mean? You're not getting money on these regional fights, you know, to get there.
Here's the thing: if UFC really cared about the fighters, I'm gonna say something that would be very controversial right now.
Okay.
If UFC really cared about the fighters, you'd be like, hey, you know what? Your manager, don't worry about your manager. Your coach, don't worry, we gotta take care of them. You know how much relief that would take off our shoulders? If you're a fighter in the UFC and you're getting paid 6 and 6, for example, but you have to pay all these other guys. That's all. Like that's your responsibility. You got to pay these guys. But now the UFC is like, hey, big brother. UFC is our big brothers. You're like, don't worry about it. We'll pay them. That would never happen. But imagine that happened. That did happen. Yo, if UFC is gonna pay my manager, fuck, good, pay my manager. So that's the thing. You know what I mean? You're a manager. You're managing 50 guys. You're managing 100 guys. You're making money from all these different guys, right? You're a coach. You have an umbrella. You're making money from all these different places. Why the fuck are you taking the money from a fighter who's one person that literally that his life depends on this fucking salary? Man, throw him a bone. Be like, you know what? I know you're struggling. We're not gonna take your money. Obviously, that's not the case. But I'm just saying, like, imagine they did say that, that's a perfect world. But what I'm trying to say, like, these are things that people don't talk about. These are things that fighters don't talk about. You know what I mean? Like the pressure and the money and the expectations, and like this guy what he deserves, and that guy wants to be your head trainer, and this guy wants to be your head coach, and this guy wants to be the fucking entourage. Like they made a movie out of it. HBO Entourage. Like that's celebrities, singers, artists. Why artists depressed? Like why are they depressed? Why? There's endless stories of celebrities, public figure. People are just like they're not happy. They're depressed because of that. It's simply because here you are trying to be a good person. Try to make a living. You want to get the fuck out of the rat race. And now you're like, I got all these other people I got to feed.
Yep. No, I mean, it's honestly not fair. I wish things would be different. You know what I mean? I wish managers wouldn't take as much. I wish, coaches and gyms wouldn't take as much, because, I mean, at the end of the day, there ain't a lot to take. You know what I mean? There's not a lot to take. So you're taking a portion of what the little bit that they have, and then let's be honest. I mean, yes, they're helping you, but they're not really helping you. Like managers are getting you the fights, right?
So
what are they doing after that? What else?
So here's the thing. I want to ask you another question. Here's the thing. How come an NFL player, he's getting trained, right? He has a trained coach, right? And a baseball player, he has a coach.
Right.
He has. How come he's not paying? How come they're not getting paid by his salary?
It's true.
Baseball.
I mean, I'm sure he's paying them a salary, but he's not paying a percentage of his salary, that'd be astronomical because they're making millions.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Why does a fighter who is signed supposedly to an organization, why does he have to fucking pay his coaches? Why doesn't the organization fucking pay the coaches?
Right. Because I mean, you look at teams that have their own strength and conditioning. They have their own, personnel that help, with everything, right? So
here's the thing. Like I know that I'm opening up a big can of worms. Like I get it. I get it. The MMA is still a baby. I understand. Like from their perspective, I understand. Like I'm not like judging anybody. I'm just here like, hey, I want to talk, speak my mind. This is like. Right. For me, it's like this is like I'm talking to you, and whoever's listening, it is if it shares some light, good. If not, whatever, But I'm just be like, hey, like this is the ugly side about fighting that nobody wants to talk about, because if you really think about it, these are stuff that fighters go through when cameras, lights behind the scenes. Like I'm still living the traumas. I'm still suffering all the losses, all the I feel like a failure. Like as a human being, my whole life, my whole identity was based on winning and losing. My whole identity was based on how much money can John make us, and my whole identity was based on like that shit. And now it's like that just crumbled beneath my eyes, and now it's like, who the fuck am I? So it's, we've been talking for a long time. I gotta get ready for practice.
No
I just wanted to leave you out there, like say, thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely.
Hopefully we can make another interview and we can
Absolutely
continue. Hopefully this sheds some light to the public. I just wanted to be like, hey, you know what? Let's do an all exclusive. You're the first guy I talked to about this. 13 years of me being a fighter. This is the first time ever I just spoke my heart.
No, and I appreciate it, man, and I love the conversation. This was good. It shed some light to me to know more about the ins and outs of being a professional fighter. I mean, it's not for everybody. It's not easy, and maybe it will help some of these younger generations to maybe think twice if they want to do it or when they not want to do it, or what they can do to maybe change to just change maybe something that their career path or something of the sort, just so people can understand what they're getting themselves into. It's not as glitz and glamour as you want it to be. You know what I mean? And it's not everybody's there. There's only one Conor McGregor, right? I mean, not everybody could be as successful as someone like him or a Ronda Rousey or someone like that. You know what I mean? And some of these people can't go into the sport thinking they're going to get this huge amount of money, this huge amount of fame, and I think you should have a ton of light on it. And I'm sure everybody that watches this and that's an MMA fighter or is thinking about being a fighter is probably going through the same hardships that you are right now. They really are. I mean, because at the end of the day, you guys are doing the same. You're living paycheck to paycheck. You got all the anxieties of wins and losses. You're going through the motions. It's not for everybody, and it's hard. And I'm glad you're able to speak about it and get your thoughts out there. And I'm going to do my best to push this out there to as many people as I can. And I want to do it justice, and help you out.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man.